I arrived at my son's house on Christmas Day with a pie I'd spent 4 hours perfecting. The snow was falling softly, and for a moment, I thought it might actually be a peaceful holiday. But when my daughter-in-law, Vanessa Cole, opened the door, peace was the last thing on her mind. She looked at me like I was an unexpected delivery. Not her husband's mother. "What are you doing here?" "Eleanor," she asked, standing in the doorway so I couldn't enter. I told her Michael had invited me for dinner, but she only smiled a sharp, cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're full tonight," she said. "You can eat out here, if you're hungry." Then she placed a plastic plate on the porch, scraps of turkey and bread crusts glistening under the porch light. "Eat there, like a dog." For a moment, I said nothing. I just looked at that plate, at the woman who'd spent years trying to erase me from my son's life, and I felt something shift deep inside. I started to laugh, not out of madness or pain, but because she'd made one fatal mistake. She thought I was powerless. "Oh, honey," I said softly, "dogs are loyal. Unlike you." I took out my phone and tapped send on a message I'd prepared days ago. Inside the house, I heard the familiar chime of my son's phone. This was the moment everything would change. Vanessa's words hung in the cold air, slicing through the kind of silence that only winter can hold. Behind her, I could see the glow of the dining room crystal glasses, gold-rimmed plates, and 8 seats filled with people who were apparently more welcome than I was. My son, Michael Reed, was somewhere in there, probably telling stories to his colleagues, unaware that his mother was standing outside like an uninvited stranger. I held the pie a little tighter, feeling its warmth fade against the chill. I tried to keep my voice steady, the way I used to when I presided over courtrooms filled with liars and charmers. I told Vanessa that Michael had invited me, that I'd spoken to him only a few days ago. She didn't blink. "Plan change?" she said lightly, her tone soaked in condescension. "This is more of a business dinner. You'd be bored." Her perfume, mixed with the scent of roasted turkey, a cruel reminder that the world inside was warm and mine had just frozen over. When she disappeared into the house, I could hear laughter, a man's low chuckle that I recognized immediately. It was Michael's. For a second, I almost knocked again, almost begged to be let in. But years of judging human nature had taught me one thing: never fight for a seat at a table that doesn't respect you. Vanessa returned, holding a paper plate wrapped in foil, her smile thin and rehearsed. "Here you go," she said, setting it on the porch beside the welcome mat that read, "Blessed Home." As she straightened, she tilted her head and pointed to the ground beside the plate. "You can eat there if you're hungry." Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as if cruelty was a form of art she'd perfected. I looked at her, really looked at her, the designer dress, the perfect hair, the arrogance built on borrowed success. In that moment, pity turned to purpose. She thought she was humiliating me, but all she did was give me the perfect setting for justice. Inside the house, I heard the chime of Michael's phone, a sound that cut clean through the chatter and the clinking of glasses. For a moment, there was silence. Then the soft scrape of a chair against the floor. When the front door opened, Michael stood there, his face pale beneath the warm light. He was holding his phone like it was something dangerous, his eyes flicking from the screen to Vanessa. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Vanessa froze. I could see her calculating, her expression shifting from shock to practiced concern. "Your mother's confused," she said smoothly. "She's been following me, trying to stir up trouble. I think she's jealous." The words came out polished, like she'd rehearsed them. But her voice trembled at the edges. Michael didn't answer. He just stared at the photos Vanessa and her boss, Richard Graves, walking into the downtown hotel, his hand at her waist. Each swipe of his finger made her sink a little lower, her confidence cracking with every image. When he finally looked up, his face was a mixture of disbelief and pain. "You told me you were working late," he said. "That was true," Vanessa replied, her tone brittle. "Just not in the way you think." The conversation inside had stopped completely. Guests stood frozen, wine glasses halfway to their lips. I could see the reflection of their faces through the doorway: curiosity, judgment, and something close to horror. I stepped inside, holding the paper plate Vanessa had left for me. Apparently, there wasn't room for me at the table, I said evenly, my voice carrying through the room. But she made sure I had somewhere to eat. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mrs. Anderson, one of Michael's co-workers' wives, gasped audibly. Vanessa's face drained of color as Michael turned toward her, holding up his phone for everyone to see. "Was this part of your business dinner too?" he asked. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. It was the moment her perfect image shattered. The elegant hostess, the devoted wife, gone in an instant, replaced by the woman who'd humiliated her husband's mother and betrayed him in the same breath. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw my son's eyes clear. The spell was broken. The moment the last guest hurried out, the house fell silent, except for the faint sound of the clock above the fireplace. Michael stood in the middle of the living room, still holding his phone, his expression unreadable. Vanessa tried to close the door, as if shutting out the world would undo what had just happened. But there was no shutting this down. The courtroom had already been assembled, and every one of us knew who was on trial. Michael spoke first, his voice low but steady. He asked her why she had humiliated me, why she had made his mother stand outside while hosting strangers in her place. Vanessa's lips trembled, but she managed to summon a fragile smile. "It was just a misunderstanding," she said. "A joke that went too far. I'd heard thousands of excuses in my life, but few so hollow." Michael's eyes didn't soften. "You call this a joke?" he asked, his tone tightening like a noose. Vanessa tried another angle. She said I'd interfered in their marriage, that I couldn't let go of my son. The accusation stung, not because it was true, but because it was the oldest weapon in the book, a way to make a mother's love sound like control. I looked at her calmly and asked, "Do you know why what you did was wrong?" She blinked, clearly thrown off. "Because it hurt your feelings," she said. Her answer landed like a stone in water, empty, sinking fast. "No," I said quietly, "because you treated a person like they were less than human." My words seemed to linger in the air. Michael turned toward her, his hands trembling, though his voice remained measured. "You made my mother eat on the porch," he said. "You compared her to a dog, and you think this is about hurt feelings." The sound of that truth made Vanessa flinch. It wasn't anger that broke her composure, it was realization. Still, she refused to yield. "I just wanted to set boundaries," she said, her voice rising. "You let her walk all over us." Michael frowned, confusion mixed with something darker. "Boundaries," he repeated. "You humiliated my mother in front of my colleagues. That's not setting boundaries, that's cruelty." Her eyes darted between us, searching for an escape that didn't exist. For the first time, she looked small, her perfect posture collapsing under the weight of her own arrogance. I could see it in Michael's face, the shift. The fog of denial was clearing, and he was finally seeing Vanessa for who she was. You said vows? He said quietly. You promised respect. His voice cracked slightly, the sound of heartbreak breaking through his calm. You broke every part of that. She reached for him, but he stepped back, his gaze steady. I can forgive mistakes, he said, but I can't forgive cruelty. I didn't need to speak again. The judgment had already been rendered. Vanessa wasn't just losing her husband's trust that night. She was losing her power, the illusion she'd built, brick by brick, on manipulation and pride. And as the snow fell quietly outside, I realized justice doesn't always need a gavel. Sometimes, it only needs the truth to echo long enough. The tension in the room had barely settled when my phone buzzed on the table beside me. I didn't recognize the number, but the message made my pulse steady instead of race. It was from Linda Graves, Richard's wife. The text was brief, sharp, and damning. You should know Vanessa's been using your son's name for more than her reputation. I read it twice before looking up. Justice, it seemed, was just beginning to unfold. Michael was still standing near the fireplace, his back to us. When I called his name, I asked him to check their joint credit card account. He frowned, but pulled out his phone, scrolling with the same focus he used when analyzing contracts. The color drained from his face almost instantly. There are charges here I don't recognize, he murmured. Hotels, jewelry stores, restaurants we've never been to. His voice cracked on the last word. Vanessa's eyes darted to mine, a flicker of panic breaking through her mask. She tried to sound calm, insisting it wasn't what it looked like. I opened another card, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. In Michael's name, it was temporary. I just didn't want him questioning my expenses. Her words hung in the air like smoke thin. Toxic. Impossible to ignore. Michael turned toward her, disbelief hardening into something colder. You opened a credit line under my name, he asked quietly. She nodded, tears beginning to form. I was going to pay it back, she said quickly. I just needed it to cover a few things: travel, dinners, gifts for clients. I spoke for the first time in several minutes, my tone measured and deliberate. Clients? I said softly. Or your boss? Vanessa looked at me as if I'd slapped her. You don't understand? She said. But her voice was trembling. I kept my eyes on her, unflinching. Oh, I understand, I replied. It's called financial fraud. You used my son's identity to fund your affair. That's not misunderstanding. That's a felony. Michael dropped into a chair, his hands covering his face. How much, he asked, his voice muffled. Vanessa didn't answer. So I did. 37,000. I said, reading from Linda's message. Over the last 8 months. Vanessa Gospit. She kept records, I nodded. Linda's a forensic accountant. She doesn't make claims she can't prove. For a long moment, no one spoke. The snow outside seemed to fall louder, as if the world itself was listening. Then, Michael looked up, his expression hollow. You stole from me, he said. Not for survival, not for family, but for lies. The truth had finally arrived, quiet, devastating, and absolute. Before anyone could speak again, the sound of a car door slammed outside, followed by hurried footsteps crunching in the snow. The front door swung open without a knock. Richard Graves stood there, his eyes bloodshot, his coat half-buttoned, the smell of whiskey clinging to him like guilt. The confident executive who had once charmed entire boardrooms now looked like a man running out of excuses. Vanessa froze. Richard, what are you doing here? she whispered, her voice shaking. Linda threw me out, he said flatly. She sent everything: emails, receipts, fotos to her. Half the company's already seen it. He looked at Michael and then at me, his shoulders sagging under invisible weight. I figured we might as well all go down together. Michael's expression didn't change. He told Richard to leave. But the man ignored him, stumbling toward the living room like he belonged there. "You think this is bad," Richard said, laughing without humor. "HR called me 20 minutes ago. They're opening an ethics investigation first thing tomorrow. Vanessa, you're included." His voice broke on her name. "They know everything." Vanessa turned white. She reached for Michael's arm, but he pulled away. "You promised me this would never touch us," she said desperately. "You told me it was safe." Richard shook his head slowly. "Nothing's safe when it's built on lies." His phone buzzed, and he looked down. "Linda just filed for divorce," he said quietly. "Merry Christmas." For a long moment, the room was utterly still. Then Vanessa's phone began to ring. She stared at the screen, her hand trembling. "It's HR," she whispered. Michael gestured for her to answer. She put it on speaker, and a calm, professional voice filled the air. "This is Jennifer Walsh from the Ethics Department. Ms. Cole, we need you to come in tomorrow morning at 9 to discuss formal allegations of misconduct." The call ended as abruptly as it began. Vanessa looked around the room as if searching for someone to save her. But no one moved. I watched her carefully. Her perfectly composed mask gone, replaced by the raw face of someone finally seeing herself clearly. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said weakly. "None of it." Michael's reply was quiet but final. "You chose every part of this." Outside, the snow had thickened, covering the world in white, a cruel kind of purity. I looked at Vanessa one last time and felt no triumph. Only certainty. Karma doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through a phone call, through silence, through the sound of a door closing behind you. After Vanessa left, the house felt impossibly still. Michael and I sat together, surrounded by the remnants of a ruined Christmas. Yet somehow, the air felt cleaner. He turned to me and said he was sorry for not seeing the truth sooner. I told him he didn't need to be sorry. He'd chosen honesty over illusion. And that was enough. As I stepped outside, the snow was still falling, soft and steady. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Justice hadn't come from anger but from clarity. And sometimes, that's all the revenge a heart really needs. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it struck a chord or reminded you of your own battles, share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. Don't forget to subscribe for more true-to-life stories of justice, strength, and redemption. Until next time, take care of your peace.